I've kind of been saving this video because it is sort of a present to myself to have a chance to make it. I'm going to talk about this book, The Way of Tarot, The Spiritual Teacher in the Cards, by Alejandro Jodorowsky and Marianne Costa. This is the book that allowed me to feel like I really was starting to know what I was doing after 14 years of reading tarot cards. Before I read this, I was pretty exclusively using the Whitesmith tarot deck. I've been reading with it for a long time, very familiar with all the images, but in that entire time, I always had this sense that there was a structure inherent in the deck that the images in that deck just didn't bring together. And I was very confused about why I thought this, because I'd been looking at these cards for over a decade, and that thought never stopped nagging me. I would even stop in the middle of reading sometimes and think, there's got to be something more here. Why can't I see it? And I read White's work. I read a lot of different books about the deck, different types of interpretations from all kinds of traditions, musings on the history of where tarot came from. But it really wasn't until I read Jodorowsky and Costa's book that it came together for me. Part of the reason for that is that this is the book that introduced me to the Marseille tarot. And in the beginning of the book, Jodorowsky speaks of his own journey in which he was collecting a lot of tarot decks, as many as he could get his hands on, and once he experienced the Nicolas Convert version of the Marseille deck, published in, I want to say 1760 off the top of my head, he came to feel that this was the real tarot deck. And so he got rid of all of his other decks and focused exclusively on that one. Now, this book, it's pretty thick compared to a lot of other tarot books. And so it goes into a lot of information first, even before you get to the cards, about the structure of tarot. That's all of this right here, the first 100 pages. He suggests that there is a lot of information packed just into the numbers in the deck, the colors in the deck. I appreciate this idea that even the cards themselves are separated into these 8 sections that each have a different hint of meaning in the way that the images are organized in these 8 spots on the card. Now, I have to admit that after another many years of study, I don't know that I agree with every single thing that's in here. Jodorowsky is a very poetic kind of guy, and as we get into his discussions of the cards, he'll offer these several paragraphs describing what if the card was talking to you, what would it say, and it is this smattering of wild poetry, which I really appreciate. I spent a lot of time working towards the goal of being a professional poet, and so these kinds of literary, artful word combinations are fun for me, but I realize that statements like, here's a good one. I, the universal mother, take my place at the explosive and monumental crossroads where the ocean of matter makes contact with the intangible soul, which disintegrates like rain to give life to every dense fragment. I don't know how much that helps you understand the nature of the Justice card in the context of the deck or in the context of a reading. but it does fill the mind with some really intense, incredible images and thoughts about what concepts the Justice card is involved with. And in addition to this, with every card, you have this list of interpretive concepts that go along with it. Though most usefully, he talks a lot about the specific details in each of the Marseille cards. And this really helped me to start thinking more about the relationships between all of the images in the deck. And that being the foundation and really the useful part of using such an old deck is that those details were very intentionally organized the way that they are. And we found that generations of card printers were not changing the vast majority of those details. If you look at the Marseille printing tradition, you'll find that the majority of these decks look pretty much the same. There are slight differences from card to card, but most of the details are intact. And so this provides a conversation that lasted hundreds of years for you as a tarot-interested person to become involved with, to contribute to, and to continue to expand on. Whereas the Whitesmith deck has been around for about 100 years, and as I'm saying with this contrast, the Marseille deck suggests that there's a conversation going on between the cards. The Smith-White cards, in a lot of ways, exist as their own individual points in the deck. And we see this highlighted even more in the idea that the Marseille Tarot is a single document in which all of its parts can be organized in a pattern. And once you get into your head and heart this idea that every card has a place in the tarot and creates a map of one's potential spiritual life, the way that you think about the cards, the way that you do readings, is going to be enriched drastically the more that you get the idea of a pattern in tarot into your mind and into your emotional life. And even further, into the way that you are spiritually interpreting the experiences you have, the things you see, the things other people tell you, the way you're looking at and understanding media, images, art. All of this can be filtered through an understanding of this map of the tarot, and it shifts the way that you come to understand why things are important. What I like about this is utilizing this system, as Jodorowsky describes it, it doesn't close anything off. So the more that you understand the system of tarot, the more that you start to see how what you experience is creating effective reflections in your own life about why you're experiencing it that way. And the tarot gives you more language to discuss that with, rather than a lot of spiritual systems that are going to suggest, well, this experience is a good one, this one's a bad one, you should avoid all of these experiences because they are not included in the system, and you should only have these experiences because that's what the system supports. The tarot system isn't like that. It embraces experience, breaks it down into possibilities, and then says, where do you go from here? Not, oh man, you messed up. And so as long as you're in this mindset that things are moving forward, they're happening for you for a reason, the tarot helps you to get a strong footing on your purpose so that the decisions that you make based on what is happening around you, what your desires are, your continual understanding of why those desires are there and why they're important to you, it's going to keep you doing things. And Jodorowsky is a big supporter of just doing it. You're going to regret not doing it a lot more than you are doing it. So whatever it is that's in your heart, that is inspiring you, that is keeping you moving, keep doing it. See what comes of it. Build things around you that you love. And that's a big part of the spirit in this book that has continued to inspire me, even if I don't agree with every single structural detail that Jodorowsky suggests. Now, he does discuss every single card in the entire deck, again with that eye to the details in the card. So that is from, what am I looking at here? The Ace of Cups. And he uses these details to show how the cards are connected, how they reference one another, and develop that system. He also goes into the couples of the tarot, as he calls them. So part 4 is looking at pairs of cards and considering how those cards would talk to each other, what they mean together. He talks about a lot of different ways to think of pairing tarot cards. Whether you are taking a look at cards of similar numerical values, whether you are looking at what the card's numbers add to. So he goes through all of the cards that add up to 21 and thinks through why those two cards would come to the same number as the ultimate card in the deck, the World. This helps you to think through not just the differences in the cards, but the tension that they hold. And the more that your mind gets used to thinking about the cards in this way, they're not just individual meanings that you've got to memorize, but rather when they hit the table, there comes to be this line of energy, this tension between every card that's there. And the more that you explore that tension, the more that you are unlocking important parts of a person's story. Where they might move along that line of tension, whether they want to break that line of tension or enhance it in order to store and create more energy between the two potentials. The way that this book describes what the cards are doing with each other gives you a lot more direction, a lot more options in order to help somebody explore their story and get deeper into it, rather than just saying, well, if you have the King of Cups, then this is a man who really understands his own emotions. Who do you think that is in your life? But rather, Jodorowsky's going to say, and this definitely reflects the lens that is in a lot of this book. It's very psychosexual, very Freudian. Jodorowsky's going to say something more like, well, since the King of Cups has appeared here with the Sun, then we need to be thinking about what could be exposed in the King card. What is it that the light needs to shine on? And you see there's water on the Sun card on the bottom. So that's a suggestion that we need to think more about what is in the King's Cup. Is the wall on the Sun card just like the rim of the cup? Or maybe you and one of your siblings in the King's Cup? This representing both the value of his emotional life and his desire to control your relationship, and in many ways to dominate how the two of you acted together. And is there something more personal outside of his control that you and your sibling need to say to each other to get out of the cup? Or is there a way that the two of you need to fulfill what your father has created for you by placing you in this cup that would help you to move on, break down barriers between the two of you and the rest of the world, or just between you two? In this way of exploring the details, the relationships between them, and these deeper questions of a person's formative psychology, there is so much to think about in how to read the cards and how to get a deeper understanding in them. I really can't emphasize how helpful this example was to me, again, even though I know I don't read just like Jodorowsky does. And I'm not informed by, say, the very long relationship that he had with a Japanese monk that he tells a lot of stories about. There's a Zen practitioner that he spent a lot of time with, learning from, and he tells stories about their relationship and ways that he learned from it, and things that helped him to reduce his ego more and more so that he felt that his art and his life was more in the spirit of service rather than just being about what he could do and what he could create. His story has been very inspiring to me. Jodorowsky has inspired a whole generation of people who are serious about understanding the Marseille deck and who want a clearer image of what the tarot has always meant. This book is a pretty big commitment, but the time spent with it is time well spent. It does have a large number of different types of spreads, which I really appreciate. Some Marseille readers just stick with very simple ones or a limited number of them, but Jodorowsky describes a lot of different arrangements, a lot of different numbers of cards, and what adding more cards to a spread is going to mean. So he really does go in depth, along with Costa. I know that I focus a lot on Jodorowsky because he's a big personality, but I don't want to ignore the fact that Marianne Costa almost certainly reined this book in and gave it a lot more structure, whereas I'm pretty sure that Jodorowsky on his own would have just made this into a series of poetic musings that you're supposed to read and sort of osmose as much information as you could out of his poetry. Costa certainly offered a lot of grounding to what's going on here. And I can only say that because I've read a lot of Jodorowsky's graphic novels. I have seen many of his films. It can be very difficult to pick apart exactly what he means when he shows you things, but you can be really sure that he is very excited about showing you the things that he has come up with and figured out how to produce. So while this book of over 500 pages may not be the best book to start with as you are familiarizing yourself with tarot in general or with the Marseille deck, for somebody who already has some tarot experience, especially if you've already been involved in a lot of religious communities or spiritual communities, and you want something that you can truly sink your teeth into, this is a fabulous place to start. And I am going to do a review of a book by one of Jodorowsky's students that is much more concise, a little more digestible, and direct as far as getting you using the Marseille deck as fast as possible. Thank you so much for watching. I am just on the verge of publishing a Patreon page so that not only can you be a part of providing this excellent content and aiding folks in their spiritual journey, but it also is structured as a tarot subscription service. So signing up to the Patreon will provide you with regular readings in order to enrich your life, get you closer to the concepts of tarot, and offer you access to somebody who is deeply invested in your personal journey. Have a fabulous day, and take care.